Welcome to the Pool Nation podcast, where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. We talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Now let's welcome your host, with over a decade of industry insider experience and still the reigning champion of Marco Polo, Edgar De Jesus, and his co-host, John JJ Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and Zach the Pool Boy Nicholas.
Welcome, everyone, to the Pool Nation Live podcast with myself, your host, Edgar De Jesus. And yes, I am the reigning champion of Marco Polo, along with John JJ Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and the famous Zach, the Pool Boy Nicholas. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about sales, your sales pitch, and selling techniques. As a business owner, we have multiple hats that we need to wear, and that sales hat is a main one that you must learn to wear. Guys and girls, as you get better at sales and you master the sales process, the more money you're going to be able to charge. And how John likes to say, that equals more money, more profit, more happiness. I want to welcome everyone to our live podcast, the podcast where it's all pool talk, and we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. And yes, we will talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. But before we get started today, I want to thank our sponsors for this podcast, Ultimate Pool Tools, HASA, Pool Invoice, and the PoolmanUniversity.com. We want to thank them for their continued support. Zach, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I got to say that we might have to change John's tag from the fastest netter in the West to the sales king after that live the other night, because that was on point. And I actually went back to my maintenance manager and sat him down and was like, hey, man, watch this. And we watched about a 15-minute clip where John was talking about the need to have cleaners in the pool and not really negotiating on that. And that's something we have discussed. And that right there is pure gold.
I agree. I think it was a great Instagram live. John, good morning.
Good morning. And I got to say, Edgar, you got a little pep in your step this morning. I don't know, the way you're kind of, the intro and everything sounds a little bit more different, a little more upbeat. I don't know.
You think I'm a little too peppy?
No, I just think you're in a fantastic mood.
Yeah. He had that coffee with that moon milk in it this morning.
Zach, you know what's funny is, so I have to go get the tags for my truck today. And I'm like, oh man, it's close to summer moon. So I'm going to time it like right around 3:00, my afternoon coffee, and kind of go through that summer moon and pick up some moon milk. And so you got me down. But you know what happens is when you're a coffee junkie, that's kind of what you think about.
Right.
Now, listen, John, I'm in a great mood today because just a lot of great stuff going on, and a lot of the things that we're working on are kind of getting closer and
coming together.
And they're coming together. And, I talked to you and the project that we're kind of talking about, and that's getting really close to start working on that. So that kind of got me excited. And then I spent some time with Zach yesterday talking about some other stuff. And then some other ideas came from that. And I think that's kind of when I get, the peppiest is when I got like 46 different things going on. When things start to slow down, and then
don't get me wrong. You are peppy. You always are. You're always positive. Every time I talk to you, you're never negative. You're always positive. You always look at things on, on the bright side of everything, very optimistic. But today you just take it to another level. I didn't think you could possibly do that, but you have. And you make my day a little bit better right now, because I woke up a little, I went to bed late last night, had a rough night last night, and this morning motivated me.
You know what? Now that you say that you went to bed late, let me tell you what happened to me last night. Zach. So we're talking to Zach, and I'm working on this other project for interviewing techniques and stuff like that. So I got to call Zach, and I'm talking to my wife, and I'm like, I'm going to call Zach. And she's like, you better not call him. Text him first. He's got to be sleeping. I'm like, it's 10:00 at night. Zach ain't going to be sleeping. And she's like, he's going to be sleeping. So I'm like, watch, he's not sleeping. So I put him on speaker and I call. Hello. No. And my wife gave me, John, the dirtiest look.
I bet.
And she's like, I told you that he was going to be asleep and blah, blah. And at all that, I'm like, I could really care less about Zach. I'm worried about Leslie now.
Did I wake her up, right?
Did it wake her up, Zach?
No, a little bit. But, I mean, we went right back to bed. I'm a pro sleeper. Like, it bugs the crap out of Leslie. I could be mid-conversation and just be like, sleep, I'm out.
Me too. I'm the same way. It's like, you fell asleep last night. I was talking to you last night. I'm on the couch. I'm watching TV or I'm on the laptop working, and all of a sudden I'm just out. I don't even know what the hell's going on. I'm up at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Eyes like in a panic. Like, what the hell just happened? I'm like, okay. And then instead of sleeping upright, I'll just lay down and fall asleep that way. It's great.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely the same way. I can just kind of wake up in the middle of the night, roll over and go back to bed. And my wife wakes up and that's it. She's up all night. But anyways, and yeah, John, the other thing is, after 11 months, so when we deal with all our software and all our stuff, we've been doing everything remotely. And so now everybody's kind of being able to get back into the office and do all that. So now I'm just kind of even more excited with all the stuff that we have going on. So definitely today I am peppy.
Awesome.
Zach, how you doing over there with all those repairs that you have going on in Houston?
It's been pretty busy, to say the least. And, Jay's been out there killing it and working his butt off. And I was even out there for a few days getting some jobs done. And I know you guys saw the pics of the dirt on my hands that I sent.
Did you? By the way, everybody that's listening to this podcast, if you're listening live, go to the Pool Nation podcast Instagram and go to the stories. And I put Zach's picture of his hands.
I didn't even know they were there.
I didn't tag you on purpose. I'm like, I'm going to put that so I can talk about it on the podcast. So, guys, if you want to see Zach's hands, go to the stories, and you're going to
with dirt on them.
With dirt, yes, with dirt. Leslie told us our story of your hands.
Yeah,
this is getting freaky. Let's move on.
John. Leslie says that Leslie says that he's got pretty hands. Go look. She's not lying. Go look at the story. Go look at the stories. He's got pretty hands. So, Zach, I know that the parts are scarce out there, and customers are saying that they have appointments for pool service companies to look at their pools. But are you in the same boat? Because I'm talking to a lot of customers, and they're like, "Oh man, it's 3 weeks out before anybody can get out here."
Yeah, I mean, right now we're fully booked for, now over 2 weeks. So anyone that calls today, it's going to be beyond 2 weeks, but we're working as quickly as possible to push everyone forward. As far as the parts thing, it's been hit or miss. It's certain things like a master temp manifold, like I can't get that, but I've been hearing people say they can't get check valves or valves and stuff like that. And we've been getting check valves and valves, and we've been able to get some PVC from SEP. Now, going to the hardware stores or, Ferguson's or Baker's or anything like that's a joke. You won't find anything, but we've been able to get some things.
Yeah, out here, you just can't find anything at all. There's no check valves. There's no heaters. There's no filters. There's nothing. And then one of my buddies called one of the stores out in California, one of the buddies that used to work at the counter. And he's like, we packed everything and we shipped everything out to Texas. We're wiped out as well. So it's crazy. They're doing that move. So, of course, we're sitting over here complaining. Wait, one thing that I want to do, I want to give a quick shout out here because without fail, every Friday morning, we have a follower that jumps on and listens to us, and that is Jeanette from Horn Family Pools. So, Jeanette, I know I typed on here and I said good morning, but I want to give you a big shout out because you're always on and you're always listening to the podcast live. So, we definitely appreciate that. So, big shout out to you, Jeanette.
Yes, for sure.
So,
very much.
John, you, my friend, keep taking a beating, and I don't know which one is worse. I don't know if it's the wins or having a backlog of work for 2 weeks, but you guys just keep getting hit week after week.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough, but let's not talk about the win, okay? We were talking about getting off on the right start for today. Please, let's not talk. I mean, seriously, it's just been brutal. It really has. And And when it comes, it's horrible. It's like a thief in the night. You're there, it's all good during the day, and then I'm sitting down, relaxing, unwinding on my laptop, doing work on the iPad, doing whatever I'm doing, right? Watching TV, kids are around, or watching a movie with the kids, or whatever. And then everybody kind of goes to sleep. And then I'm sitting there finishing up my work, doing what I'm doing, because I'm a night owl. And then all of a sudden you hear it coming, and it's like, it's just like bang. I have my sliding glass door, which overlooks the pool, and we have like a little bush right there, and the thing just starts. And I know when it's bad, when it starts to hit like the wall, and I just sit there and with anxiety, and it's just like, oh my God. And we had like 2 weeks ago, we had 70-mile-an-hour winds, and then just a couple of days ago, we had 50-mile-an-hour winds, and then Sunday they're coming back again. So it's just like, I don't know, we just can't get a break. But I mean, that's what we get paid for, I guess.
So what are these winds? I don't
Dude,
know. I mean,
they're from Satan.
Oh, John, I think people can't understand. So I never in my life have had anxiety, right? I never have. And I think the only time that I always used to get that anxiety was we had old windows in our house. And when the Santa Ana winds would come, our bedroom window would like shake a little bit and you could hear it. And that was like the constant reminder all night. Like, I'm out here, I'm messing up your pools. And I would literally not be able to sleep all night. And then, man, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm up, I'm ready, I'm dressed. It's dark outside. My wife is going, what are you doing up so early? And I'm like, man, as soon as I see just tiny bit of light, I am out. And it was like that. You can't sleep. That constant wind hitting the side of the house or the windows is just that constant reminder. And Zach, the pools just get trashed, where you're just miserable. And it's one of those where you just kind of like,
oh man,
I just want to quit this. If I was going to quit, this would be it.
Yeah, for sure. And but see what Dustin, what's crazy, and I don't get it, is it blows like hell all through like the early morning. And then the minute you hit the road, it stops. You know what I mean? And then you just have to deal with the aftermath, right? It's not like, some places when it gets windy, if it's windy during the day, hey, it's like a Pullman holiday almost. There's only so much you can do when the wind's blowing like crazy. And at the top, you empty the baskets, you do your chem checks, check on the equipment, right? You do what you need to do. If you can't see the bottom, how are you really going to even vacuum it? But the thing is it just blows like hell at nighttime and early morning. And then right around 6, 7 o'clock, it all stops. And then when you drive off and you pull off and you hit the road, you see the aftermath. You see all the shit on the roads, and your day's going to be wrecked. And it's like, the majority of the customers don't even know it was windy because they were asleep. The pool is thrashed, and it's just unbelievable. So, yeah, anyways.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So, John, I definitely feel your pain. Trust me. I've been there. And even I know Maria's listening in Sonata Pools. She tagged me and it was windy out there. And then I also got tagged by Jer Bear in his video. And I was laughing, Zach, because it's windy and it's 55 degrees and he's got a hoodie and he's got a beanie and he's got like all these things. And I'm sitting here laughing going, 55, that's a short day for us.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that before the freeze, I was complaining about 55-degree weather too. And, when you just go a few days without power and it's 15 to 20 degrees and you get 55 degrees, you're out there in shorts and you're like, this is awesome. This is amazing.
That's true. But yeah, and it's funny because in California, I was the same thing. If it was 55 degrees, I had my ski jacket on and hoodie and just beating it all up. And, you come out and you kind of get used to it. But anyways, guys, I do want to give a big shout out to Brian Chrisen, Andrew Ragland, and Erasmo Nunez from Hayward. We did some videos with them and we posted them on the Pullman University site. We did some videos on the OmniLogic PL upgrade and the VS Omni. And Erasmo did one in Spanish on the functions of the OmniLogic. And I think they're great videos. They're showing their upgrade and how easy it is. And Brian just basically on their panel shows you're going to take this off, unplug this, boom, 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 put the new one and you're done. So they're great videos. And I want to thank them, obviously, all of them for taking the time to do those videos. So if you guys want to see them, go to thepullmanuniversity.com and you could see and watch those videos from there. Guys, before we get started, let's do our thing and let's talk about the classes that we have coming up. The PCTI class that Hasa Dave was doing on the 20th was rescheduled because of the weather, and he's scheduled it for March 13th. So you could check that out at pcti.online. And I did talk to Bob this morning because of the freeze and not being able to do it. Some people moved it to March 13th. So he's thinking of, trying to make it up to all those people and him maybe doing a makeup class for that, but then he would obviously teach that class. So he's kind of working on it. They're trying to figure out everybody's schedule. So check out pcti.online. I know that there's one, I think tomorrow, right, Zach?
Yes, tomorrow there is one, and we have some people attending it. So,
okay, great. So yeah, check it out, guys. The other one is the business class that we're doing, and we only have 2 spots left. In that class, we're going to cover the business side of your company. It's a hands-on class where you're going to be entering data into our software so that you can get the 2 metrics that we've created to help you learn the cost of cleaning and the average cost of service. You're also going to create a P&L, profit and loss, and you'll go over all the details of your business, and you'll learn your real net profit and what you really make. And guys, with this class that we're doing, it's an actual hands-on class. There's homework. So I'm going to be honest with you. If you want to take one of those 2 last spots, you better do it quick, because as we get closer to the class, there's going to be homework, and not sure if you're going to be able to get it all together. But the idea of the class is once you input all those numbers, once we talk about it, you're actually going to have your actual true numbers in the software, and you're going to be able to have true numbers. So if you want to register, go to the Pool Nation podcast. At the top of the page, it says Pool Nation Business Training. Click on it and it'll take you to the registration. There's also a link on the right-hand side of the page, so you can click on it there. Go ahead, Zach.
I want to add, if you're on mobile and you're on the poolnationpodcast.com, the button is just scroll down to the bottom and you'll find the business training button down there. So
this class, guys, and Mom is asking here how long the class is going to be. The class is going to be about 4.5 hours, and we limit it to 12 people because, we want to be able to spend enough time having people enter their numbers and be able to kind of answer any questions that are going on. So we're going to go over a lot of different things. We're going to go over, the business side. So we're going to talk a little bit about LLC. We're going to talk about S Corps. And Cindy from Aquatics Business Solution reached out to me and said, hey, can I be in the class in case anybody has any questions? So she's going to join on that class too and have the ability to answer any questions that you have. But we're going to go over billing, guys, and what your software should have and how to set it up. It's so that the software works for you. Because one of the things that we hear all the time is I'm 2 months behind on my billing and all that. So we'll go through all those, how you should set it up so that it handles your cash flow. Then from there, we're going to go into the expenses, the fixed, the operational, and we'll kind of cover all those. And then we'll actually have you log into the software, enter all the numbers, teach you how that works. And then at the end, we'll very briefly go over some forms that you could download from there. You'll have the terms of service, you'll have rate increase letters, you'll have a drop letter, and those you'll have access to anytime. You can click on them, download, use them. But it's going to be about 4.5 hour, maybe even stretch to 5 based on how much time we have with everybody entering and getting their numbers. And then for this class only, we will do that after March is over. We'll have you plug all those numbers in, and then we will allow you to schedule a Zoom call with me, Zach, John, or 2 of us, or whenever we're available, and really kind of go through your business, go through your numbers, and answer any questions that you have. And I know some of the guys, Zach, had some questions on a little bit of marketing and stuff like that. So we said during that time, that's your time. You can ask whatever you want. The class starts at 9:00 a.m. Pacific time, 11 Central, and then noon Eastern. And we wanted to do it a little bit later so everybody wouldn't have to get up at the crack of dawn. All right, guys, I want to talk about the sales process because we've gotten a lot of questions on this lately. And I have guys and girls that have sent questions that include, the process and trying to kind of break it down. So I want to start by reading a description of the sales process so everybody understands that the sales process is a completely separate function of just cleaning pools or water chemistry or repairs. It's another one of those functions that you need to treat separately. And so a sales process is a set of repeatable steps that a salesperson takes a prospective buyer from the early stage of awareness to a closed sale. So typically a sales process is going to consist from 5 to 7 steps. And that could be prospecting, preparation, approach, presentation, handling objections, closing, and follow-up. Not all of those fit exactly into what we do, but what I'm trying to explain, guys, is the sales itself has a process that you need to learn and you need to follow so that you can get a lot better at that. And the reason that I wanted to read this and bring this up is, to me, the sales aspect of your business is very, very, very crucial. And a lot of times we don't spend the time learning about it and putting it into play, how we do water chemistry and repairs, and we learn all those and we spend time. We don't do that to the sales process. And, you guys have heard me say this, and trust me, this is not going to be the last time that I talk about it, because if you're not good at sales, you're not good at making money. And you might be good in your eyes, but the better that you are, the better results you're going to get. And in this case, the better results, the more money you're going to make. So, go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say that's so true. It's like everything else. You get good at water chemistry and your pools are, they get better. You spend time learning about repairs, and then you're able to do repairs and you get better at repairs, and you don't have to depend on someone else for those repairs. And then sales are no different. I mean, there's a technique to it. And once you learn it, hopefully master it, and practice the steps that you need in your sales pitch, it's going to allow you to charge more and make more.
Yeah. And for me, the sales part's the fun part. It's building the relationship. It's building the trust. You're able to educate the customer. And at first, it's a little scary, but the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more you have those conversations, it becomes much easier over time.
Definitely. So guys, we want you to put a lot of focus on the sales side and learn those steps, because the stronger you get, the more money you're going to be able to demand, the more money that you're going to be able to make, and the happier you're going to be, guys. Because if you make more money doing this job, the happier you're going to be. When you get into those backyards to do those pools, you're not going to dread it. So Zach and John, I want to ask you guys about your businesses, and you guys do things a little bit differently. And that's part of the part of this podcast that I love, is kind of being able to get different people's angles and share those. So Zach, I want to start with you, and maybe you can tell us about quoting your first rates. And everybody that knows Zach's story, he started doing repairs first, and then he went into service. So what was your approach when you did those first quotes?
So as you mentioned, starting with the repairs, and then we didn't add the maintenance until almost 7 years later. So by the time we added the maintenance, we had already had quite a bit of experience with talking with customers. So if we go back to the beginning, when we're doing the repairs, it was tough because we hadn't built that confidence yet. And you don't have a reputation at that point. You haven't gotten the feedback from customers. So in those first few sales interactions, you're left wondering, is this going okay? Or do they think I'm a complete idiot? But when we started maintenance service, as I mentioned, we had already had that experience in dealing with customers, and we had already done quite a bit of market research prior to actually launching our service. And we had developed that confidence over the years. So we were able to launch that maintenance service at a competitive rate from the beginning.
That's a great point. And John, I started laughing in my head right when you did too, kind of going out there and trying to figure out doing those sales pitches, and you leave and you get in the truck and you're like, did I do good? Did I not do good?
Remember that story you told us? I was thinking about you. Remember that story you said? And you go, oh my God, I screwed that up. Remember you said you went out to see a customer or something like that, and you did a quote or you did something, and you were walking out to the truck and you were just like, you thought, oh my God, I completely flopped that, or I messed that up. We've all had those moments. It's funny, and just, sitting back and kind of thinking, because we've all been there.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how good you are in sales. If you don't understand what you're talking about, and if you don't know how things work and what it is, you could sound like an idiot sometimes.
And that there's a process to it. And you talked about it on the Instagram Live. And so we talk about the 7 steps, and obviously they don't always flow in the order that you want them to flow. But when you were talking about the Instagram Live, you kind of started talking about the objections and the things and why are we here? And then they start telling you why they're not happy with the other with the other pool service guy, but you still had those steps in place. So guys, what we're trying to say is, just like you practice your water chemistry and all that, there's these steps that you need to have, and you need to learn those steps in order to be able to really have a great sales process. And John, I don't know for you, but for me at the beginning, I was so, and I don't want to say overwhelmed because it wasn't so overwhelmed, but there's so many different things that you're trying to learn that this is something that you kind of don't put that much of a thought process into because you're trying to get the water chemistry down and you're trying to do the repair and you're trying to do all these things that you kind of don't think about this when you first get into the business.
Well, no, and I can see that for like the majority of people, unless they come from like a sales background. And fortunately, I did. So, the customer interaction, the sales, that, the talking, that I kind of got, but it was more of like, my trouble was understanding, I got textbook smart or, reading books and watching videos and doing stuff like that at the beginning. And you can recite something, but if you don't understand it or how or why it's like that, it's like you're talking about, you're there with the customer and they don't have a clue. And you're talking about hyperhufinator valves and kick plates and flex capacitors and shit. And, and you guys are both sitting there going like, okay, is he buying it? I know it's true because I read it, but don't friggin' ask me why, it is or however. It's like, I get it. Well, now it's a different story. When you really have a grasp of it and you understand it, and you say it, it comes off and people will see it and know what you're talking about because, sometimes you'll get a savvy customer who knows something will ask you a question. If you can't fire that answer immediately and understand it, then you lose credibility. And it's a game. It really is. So it's all about building trust. They need to be able to trust in you and what you can provide and the service you're going to provide. And the only way you can get that is by being great at sales because that interaction they're not watching you work. Okay, show me you can do it really well and then I'll pay you. No, it's like, okay, believe me that I can do this really well and you really need to do this and then I'll pay you. So it's nothing to do with talent or skills or work or anything like that. And I'll kind of get into it a little bit later in the podcast, but it's really about whether you can sell yourself. And that is critical and crucial.
Absolutely. So Zach, what was the first rates that you started quoting?
For our repairs, we were cheap. And I mean cheap. And I'm sure people loved us for that. We were selling motor replacements for like $350, which is crazy. And that went on for years until we got tired of not making any money and not growing. And I want to be clear that we were extremely busy all the time. I mean, we were working 7 days a week from, the crack of dawn until dark, but we weren't growing, and moving on to when we added maintenance, the first rate we quoted was at $189.99 plus tax. And then we charged additionally for filter cleanings 2 times per year. And those were at $110 each for maintenance customers. So regular price was $120, but we kind of threw a little $10 discount on that for them. And one thing that we've promoted all along is a free filter clean when you start service, because we always wanted to start with a clean filter, which hopefully meant less issues for us. However, all of this has changed and we're kind of finalizing a lot of this week.
Hey, do you still have that $350 rate? Because I can book some appointments for you.
Bet.
Hey, John, you need somebody to replace that for you for $350?
And we include a $20 bill in your invoice and send it over as a thank you.
I think when you start and you really kind of don't have the business part of it, your mentality is always, if I go low, I'll get the job, and that's kind of something that as you get better at sales, you kind of get out of that mentality.
Can I add to that's exactly it? And I know we've covered this a lot, but when we first did our branding, if you want to call it that, it was affordable pool and spa repair. And I've talked about it in the past, as we've kind of changed our mentality onto that, it became professional pool and spa repair. So we were completely in that mindset of we're going to do a better job than everyone and we're going to charge a lower price than everyone. And that just doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Hey guys, Leslie, for those that are listening to the podcast, our podcast has a messaging system. So you could be listening live to the podcast and people can be messaging in part of the conversation. And Leslie just put on there, Zach, that it was so cheap. So Leslie, I actually, just as Zach was talking about it, I messaged 3 of my customers and booked 3 more appointments at $350.
Appreciate it.
So Leslie, I'll be sending those out to you so that you can kind of schedule those in. Zach, at what point did you look at it and realize that you needed to get better at that part of your business, at the sales side of it?
So when we first launched the maintenance route, if I remember correctly, we weren't even going out to look at the pools. We were just like, you want maintenance? Cool. You'll be on Tuesday route. And that was it. And then we would just start them. And after having a few situations where we rolled up on some pools that weren't in the best shape and had some algae or equipment issues, we decided that we need to go to every pool first and check them out. And as I mentioned before, it's tough to go back to a person and tell them they need to spend more money after we quickly sold them on that $189.99. And it only took maybe a couple months before we came to the conclusion that we need to assess every pool prior to putting them on maintenance. And that's what we do now.
Now, let me ask both of you this. So obviously you don't, but you don't do any quotes over the phone.
We don't. Yeah.
You don't.
Absolutely not. There's so many variables.
And that was my next question. So, yeah. John, why don't you?
Well, it's just so many variables. You just live and learn. And Zach hit the nail on the head right there. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So when somebody, I'm just going to say something, put something out there and say, okay, we have a 10 by 20 pool. I can't tell you how many times we have a 10 by 20 pool, average size pool, blah, 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 blah. How much do you charge to service it? And I'm like, wow. And we have almost like a canned response, but we tailor it to the customer's name because we get a lot of emails or we'll get like Yelps or whatever. And it's just like, well, there's a lot of factors that go into pricing out a pool. One is size, obviously the size of the pool, the age of the pool, the equipment, and then who's using the pool, bather load, whether there's dogs, whether there's kids in there, the backyard, most importantly, access. There's just so many things that we have to take into consideration. So it's not fair. But what we do is we let them know. And this can sometimes hurt you or not, but I make it very clear that, hey, we do have a minimum though. If they really need a price, I go, I'll tell you what our minimum is, but the prices go up from there, just so we can kind of filter out. Because sometimes, we're a little more expensive than most, and they go, oh, that's way out of it. And, we don't go out there and waste our time and waste their time. But it's just impossible. You just really can't, Or somebody says, oh, let's just say somebody wants to put a pump in there. Or, yeah, how much is it called to install? How much are you going to charge me to install a pump or put a pump in? Well, if you go out there and you look at it, the plumbing really matters. If you have to replumb the whole thing or you have to do all this to it in order to put a pump in, it's not going to quite cost that much that you think it is. Or if you have to go out there and tell them, hey, look, oh my God, I'm going to have to charge you an extra $200 to plumb this because of this or because of that or whatever, or these issues. You just can't do it. Or a light, for instance. So how much you charge me for a light? Well, it really depends, right? How long is the run? You got to measure it. You got to figure it out. What's the issue with it? So as you learn that, hey, we just need to go out there. I'm not going to charge you to go out there to give you this quote. And then when you give them and they understand it usually 9 out of 10 times. And the ones that don't are the ones you don't want.
And we've found from personal experience that doing over the phone, because you're right, you get that person that they're relentless. They're like, I just need a price. I just need a price. And you throw out that ballpark price and then they move forward with it and you get out there and you find that you have to put 3 new valves on the suction side because of how it's plumbed. And that's not cheap. And then they're super mad at you, even though you went and you explained that, like, I can't really give you a price. I can't really do this without seeing the equipment. If you kind of do that, then they hold you to the fire in most cases anyways.
Yeah, I think this is another key point to a sales process and learning that as you go along, that it's not your best interest. So as you're doing sales, this is another thing that we need to put into it is really not to do any quotes over the phone. And I always tell everybody, don't do the quotes over the phone. What I found from my experience when I was starting, and this is for the people that are starting, is that you almost also have an advantage over seasoned pool guys. So I would get a call with somebody with a green pool and they would go, hey, we're trying to get a quote. We're trying to get a quote. We're trying to get a quote. And I'm like, I need to come out and see it. I need to test the water. I need to do this. I need to do that. And they would be like, oh, well, this other guy called and I just need you to give me a price because the other guy said that he needs to empty it. He needs to do an acid wash and he needs to do, all this other stuff. And that's when you use your sales ability. And I would say, I can't tell you that water needs to be emptied or not. I need to look at how green the pool is. And really what's going to determine if I need to empty that pool is going to be your water chemistry. It's going to be if your TDSs are too high. It's going to be if the water conditions are really in a state that water needs to be drained. Is your conditioner too high? I go, so I can't tell you that over the phone unless I come out, take a look at it, and give you a knowledgeable answer to that.
Oh, for sure.
And the people would be like, oh, yeah, come out and take a look at it. And there were times where the pool had to be empty, but a lot of times, the pool would just kind of be like light green that had just turned green. And I'm like, man, I could just shock this damn thing and flip it over, and you test the chems, and the chems are good. But you use that and you put that into your sales process, and then you have the advantage. But getting in front of the person is going to be one of the most important things that you could do, because John, Zach, you could sell yourself, right? That's the ability for you to sell yourself and have them, get you on. But then two is you really have to look at the product. You really have to look at the pool and the condition of it before you are able to give that quote. So I think this is another big step into the sales process. Zach, let me ask you this. Now that times have changed for you, and it's not just you and Justin, you have a team, you have a person that does some of your bidding and rates and all that kind of stuff. What kind of steps have you put in place for that person to be able to quote the rates?
Once we started getting more people inquiring about maintenance, I personally, because in the beginning it was me, I personally had to start pulling back from the checkouts. It just made more sense rather than me to go stop what I'm doing in the middle of the day, hop in a truck and go do this. It made more sense to have Justin stop by and assess the pool. Since he was already on the road, he could really spend that time to diagnose the equipment for any failures and build any repair estimates for the customer, because that's what he was doing every single day. So to help Justin, we created a certain job type in our field management software, and we had these custom fields and questions tailored to the checkout of the pool. And some of those questions are, about the chemistry, the vegetation levels, are there pets, is there a cleaner, do they have weir doors, are there main drain covers, and so on. And it also has all of the fields from our equipment inspection. And because we have a standard starting rate that only goes up if the pool's over 30,000 gallons, it was always easy to quote that rate because the rate is $189.99 if you want to get started. And we don't customize the rate for every situation. We did get caught up a few times in the beginning lowering the rate because the pool is a lot smaller, and we kind of fell into that whole, it's not really big and all that. So, okay, we'll cut you a deal. But we don't negotiate on that anymore because we're still filling a spot on our route, and we're still using all the same resources to get a tech out there.
Amen. Preach it.
And the same cost, right? There's still a cost associated with that.
Yep.
Have you changed that process, and how much time have you dedicated to it? And I know that you're working on a total package that is going to be presented to the customers, and maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that and tell us why you think it's so important that you approach the customer with that type of sales.
We've been reworking the way we sell maintenance and present that service to the customer for about 6 months now. And we just now finished that project. It was supposed to launch February 1st, but here we are at a March 1st launch. The whole goal was to build the process so that we were setting all of the right expectations from the very beginning to be able to have that successful relationship with our customers. So I'm going to list some of the changes we've made with this, and that's no more free filter cleans and equipment inspections. No more borates included. It's now an additional service that they can opt into. And this first call out where we go check the pool is free. And it's really a relationship building and expectation setting visit. Once they sign up, they'll get our Total Care Startup service for $150, which will include the filter clean and the equipment labeling. And I'll explain a little bit more here in a minute. If they opt into the borates, it's an additional $75 startup and an additional $20 monthly. Another thing is the customer has to be on site to meet our maintenance manager who will do that first checkout, that first visit. We also have a branded packet now, and it has our service agreement and some educational materials, all of them branded. We will soon have a DocuSign version of our service agreement that will be linked to our field management software. And that means that when they sign it, it'll automatically attach it to their customer profile. So we don't have to do any scanning or uploading or anything like that. And then we now require high CYA levels to be addressed prior to starting that maintenance service. And let me give you a little bit more insight to the overall process and explain it a little better. The process used to be that we would go out to check the pool and the customer wasn't even there. And during that checkout, we're doing the whole equipment inspection and going through all of that and putting in all those custom fields. Then we would leave and the office would follow up with the customer to finalize that sign up. Once they got back to us and they decided to move forward, we would then send Justin out to do a free filter clean. And if you think about that, we're sending our biggest breadwinner out there to do a free filter clean. After that filter clean was done, we would then start the weekly maintenance on whatever day they were placed on our route. So this process took 2 to 3 trips, all for free to complete, which is absolutely insane. Our new process...
Zach, can I interrupt you? And guys, let's take a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, I want everybody to be able to think about what that process was like. And then when we come back, I want you to go into the detail on your new process.
2021 is the year of the Pool Pro. HASA is here to support pool pros with the purest and highest strength liquid sanitizer available. HASA SaniChlor provides fast, safe chlorine performance without adding any cyanuric acid or calcium. HASA gives you the best cost per use solution for shocking and daily sanitizing and is in stock. Look for the new HASA Rewards app coming soon. Go to HASA.com for more news, educational videos, and product information and literature. The Hyper Pole from Ultimate Pool Tools is a pool care pole designed by pool professionals for pool professionals, featuring precision-crafted carbon fiber and stainless steel construction. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at Ultimate Pool Tools. Introducing Pool Invoice. Pool Invoice is pool billing software that was created specifically for the pool service and repair industry. It was developed for our industry and only our industry. Pool Invoice was built with recurring billing in mind. You can print, email, text invoices, or even send via WhatsApp. You can add recurring or yearly charges, accept credits, and set up autopay. You can even see when customers have seen the invoice. It even has a customer portal where they can log in and see, print, and pay invoices. It has all of your customers' information on one page, so you don't need to search through hundreds of invoices looking for the one you need. Just go to the customer's profile, and it's all at your fingertips. It's currently in beta phase, so anyone can use it for free. Just go to poolinvoice.com and request an invitation at the bottom of the page. Pool Invoice was made for you.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to John and Zach. We are talking about the sales process, sales techniques. We're in the middle of having Zach explain to us his sales process. And he's talked about some of the changes that he's made into his sales process and some of the things that he's taken out. And now he's going to talk to us about the new process that the Pool Boys are using.
Yeah, so hopefully y'all had some time to kind of digest that terrible process and understand where all the failures are within that. And so our new process is that the customer calls in and they request maintenance. They get an on-site meet and greet with our maintenance manager who will provide them with a branded folder that, again, has our service agreement, his business card, an informational paper about cyanuric acid, a sales sheet that covers our Total Care startup service. And on the backside of that sales sheet are 2 promotional deals for a salt system install and a Polaris Quattro cleaner. And it's exclusive to new maintenance signups and good for 90 days. All of those materials will be covered in detail with our maintenance manager and the customer so that he can set the expectations and answer any of their questions. And this is why it's important that the customer is on site for that. It's so much harder to sell over the phone. We've tried that and there's just a disconnection. So it's very important that we have this on-site meeting. So after that, the office follows up and they finalize that deal. Once the deal is finalized, we then send out our tech to do that full inspection, provide any estimates for repairs, and do that filter clean all in that same visit. And it makes sense now because remember, this is now a $150 service. We're getting paid for that time to have that technician there to do all of these things. After that, their weekly maintenance starts and the sales process is over. And what this does is allow our maintenance manager to focus on that first visit. It allows him to really focus on building that relationship and covering the details of our actual service. And we're not spending all this time and energy to go through the equipment and do all of these things. And then our technician can follow up after that visit once they commit to maintenance and that Total Care startup service. And now he's able to solely focus on that equipment. And like I said, this process is brand new. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out and what changes, if there are any, will need to be made.
There's some things in here that are just beautiful, that are awesome. John, what do you think about that process?
I love it. I mean, Zach is, he's a great businessman. And I know he puts a lot of thought and effort into it. And everything here, these guys, the things that Zach is listing out and putting out here, this isn't just shit that he's just throwing up against the wall, seeing if it works. This is years worth of trial and error and failures and finding out better ways and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And if you're really serious about what you're doing and you want to take your business to the next level, these are the types of things that you need to focus on and to put in place. Yes, it takes a lot of work. Not while we work hard enough when we're out there scrubbing tubs and doing what we're doing, or doing repair, whatever it is that you do. When you come home, you kind of want to relax, but you got to sit there and you got to put the work in if you really want to build your business into something really successful. And this is a roadmap. You don't have to necessarily hit on every single point, but you can use these things and you can definitely make your business much more successful if you put the effort into it after hours.
I got to add too, it's not just me. I need to be clear. This was, like I said, this change now was a 6-month process, and I'm getting feedback from Edgar, from John, from my web guy, from our team. We're sitting down in a room together or just having a kind of a little get together in the office, and we're tossing ideas and we're playing out scenarios with each other and playing devil's advocate, and it went on for months. So it's not just me. So you want to make sure if you have good mentors or you have people to reach out to and bounce these ideas off, definitely do it. And I think I speak for everyone here. I will always be a sounding board. I will always be able to give my opinion and try to help any way I can.
But Zach, again, I'm going to throw it out at you again. And I'm going to say, look, it takes a special, you have to be humble. You have to realize that you don't have all the answers. Too easily, when we think we're being successful, when we think we're doing well, that we think, oh, this is the way it's worked and it's always worked for me and I don't need to change it. But that is not how you grow. Times are always changing. There's always roadblocks and obstacles down the road, and you need to constantly evolve and better yourself. And to be able to sit back and go, look, you have a successful company already. But you want to grow it and be more successful and harbor an environment for your employees and your people and your family and your kids and your grandchildren. And, you want to build something that's going to last. And the only way you're going to do it is to be able to sit back and go, how can I get better at what I'm doing? Even though I'm doing well, I want to be better at it. So kudos to you. And anybody who's listening, re-listen to this podcast over and over again. Take the things that he's talking about here, because I'm telling you, it's pure gold.
Here's my thought, Zach. I'm going to go into a little bit of a breakdown of those points that you were talking about. But, we all get together and we're always talking about wanting to take our industry to the next level. And it even made me think more this week when I went out to a customer. I'm having a conversation with him and he tells me, why is it so hard to find good, reliable pool guys? Why is that? So that's what we're always talking about. We're always talking about improving our industry and making it better and doing those things. And I'm not saying this because it's Zach and Zach is on the podcast, but you really do have the ability to, from the business side, hone in on something and really kind of take it to the next freaking level. I've talked about things that even I have learned from, you and John, and even talking to some of the other people. And here's my point. We talk about the sales process and we're telling people break down that sales process, learn that sales process, and try to use it to the best of your advantage. And so I'm looking at this package thing that you're putting together. And first of all, you have a problem with customers with the high CYA. And it's very hard to go to a customer and tell them you need to empty your pool because the previous 10 guys didn't know what they were doing with the CYA. And now your levels are so high that now you need to empty it. The first thing that they're going to look at you and go, well, how come out of 10 people, nobody's ever talked about it? So in your sales pitch, you address the number one thing that you need to tackle, which is that education part. And first of all, to get them on that process. So you've grabbed that sales process, you have that problem, and now you've involved it into your sales process. The other thing, and this is huge, and now I look back and I go, man, did I leave money on the table? But what a great opportunity to do offerings of products for like the first 90 days, right? For the SALT system or the Polaris Quattro, that you're going to give them that opportunity to buy it, whether it's at a discount or whatever. But you now, onto your sales pitch, you've added another form of sales pitch to increase that revenue. That is phenomenal. And then the fact that you sit back and you think, man, we're sending out Justin to do the filter service and he's the highest paid guy. It just takes me back to the same point, Zach, that you're always looking at everything and going, where from a business standpoint, where from the number standpoint, is this going to make the most sense? And so I think you putting all these things together, and I hope that you guys that are listening out there, and maybe you're at the stage where you're starting and you're not at a spot where you're going to put all these things together. But I tell you, man, take some of these points and put them into your speech and do have a couple products and do create something for the CYA so it makes that sale a lot easier and that education a lot easier. And you're going to see the difference. This is just, I'm completely blown away. And we haven't talked about your package in detail. And you start talking about it here. And I just kind of start going off and getting excited about some of these points that you've included into that sales pitch. I think it's phenomenal.
Well, I appreciate that. And I got to say, the cool thing, first of all, I got to say Mike Salmon is the one who really got me into having something to physically put in their hands. And the more I started to think about it and understand it, you talk about the CYA thing, even if you are confident and you know what you're talking about, you get that conversation and they say the last 10 people never mentioned it to me. And you're able to talk about this and explain it. But now you have a supporting document that looks very official and very well written. And we didn't make it very technical. We made it more, I guess, basic in the wording just to get them to understand it. But now we're able to kind of support what we're saying with something for them to read. And they can take that and they can refer to that, or they can throw it on the ground or whatever. But we're still handing them something supporting that CYA issue. I'm super pumped to see how this goes.
And it goes back to the same thing, guys. So if you guys know who Mike Salmon is, Mike Salmon was pool guy, or sorry, if you didn't know who Mike Salmon is, Mike is another pool guy, but his background was all complete solid sales. Even in having conversations with him when he started and he started reaching out, it was really, these are the things that you need to do. Your rates are too low. He started charging $99 when he first started. His first pools were in San Diego at $99. By the time he had spent the time and done some of that stuff, Zach, he was charging $195 to some pools. And so he kept saying the same thing. If people would just put and practice their sales, they're going to be able to get a higher rate just because they're a better salesperson. Forget about cleaning the pool. Forget about teaching them about water chemistry, all that. If you have a better sales process, it equates to more money. And if you look at it and we talk about John, this is the exact same thing. He has that process down and he's able to get that $175 because he does offer the better service, the premier service, but he's good at that sales communication with the customer. So guys, for all you guys listening out there, this is why we're doing the podcast. Your sales game has to be just as good as any other part of your business if you want to make money. So, John, I was going to tease you and go, cue John, but there was no question, so I couldn't cue John. So, John, because I want the guys to listen to your side, and we've had some conversations, and you have this ability to explain things in ways that you break it down, and I think that's important for customers. And even for guys when we're talking about water chemistry and stuff like that. But you also have the background with the customer service and all that kind of stuff. So I want to go into details into yours and even kind of have you almost like throw a sales pitch at me, like if I was your customer. The only challenge is we've already been going for an hour. And if we start doing that, we would have to cut that podcast short. And I don't want to do that. So what I want to do is do a separate podcast where we're talking to John and we get John's feedback on how he does it and how he's able to go from a market where it's service for twice a week to once a week, and he's also charging starting at $175. So, John, we'll leave that for another podcast. I do want you to cover a couple things because I've been telling the people that have asked the questions, we'll talk about it on the next podcast. We'll talk about it on the live. We'll talk about it on the next podcast. So I don't want them to feel that we've kind of forgotten about them. So I want to ask you a couple questions that were directed towards you. And here they are.
Sounds good.
Cue John. So I was kind of getting to my questions here. So here was one of them, was yet another awesome podcast released yesterday, guys. I really would love to hear how John words his heater maintenance service. Tell us how you sell that. What's your approach to that added service?
Okay, so in a nutshell, and when it comes down to it, we explain to the customer, we let them know that the most expensive piece of equipment on their pad is what? A heater, by far, the one piece of equipment. So usually the one thing that's, how do I put this? So I tell them, I go, look, here, you have the most expensive piece of equipment is your heater. And yes, we can repair it when it breaks, but how about we try to maintain it so that we can make it last as long as possible? In order to take care of a heater or, take care of or service a pool, not only do you go there and you check things, but you have to fix it when they break. But our goal as a company is to help maintain the equipment properly throughout its life so that it can give you its most service life. So heaters are susceptible to a lot of different things, especially rodents, mice, dirt and debris, things that get inside there. And unless you open it up and check it, clean it out, run through tests and do different things to it, there's a good chance that when you go to fire up that heater, especially if it's older, that there might be an issue with it and that you're going to, one, most importantly, have a disappoint. Because it's not so much getting it fixed, but it's also, we have a lot of customers out here that are snowbirds and they don't live here and they don't come and use their pool very often. But when they do come and use their pool, they come out here to escape Canada or up north or wherever, and it's warmer during the wintertime and they'll heat their pool. When we service pools, we'll check equipment, but we don't turn on the heater and run it for 10 minutes to make sure it works. And we don't open up the casing of the heater. Nobody does that, or at least nobody that I know. And I don't know how it's feasible to do it without being paid for it. So we found out throughout the years that we had a few, or actually quite a few customer disappoints. They would come down and say, hey, John, we came down to use the heater in the hot tub and the hot tub didn't turn on. Or it heated up for a little bit and it shut down. And it only got up to 88 degrees or 85 degrees. And then we have to go out there and check on it, or we have to go out there and service it. And the time has passed and the customer is already, disappointed. So we figured out a way, and we could have said, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit there and figure out exactly when everybody's coming down so that we can go out and run it and check it right before? And I said, that's just crazy talk. Kind of like what Zach was saying. It's just not, we want to offer a great service, but I can't just do that with every single customer and know their schedule and whatever. So we said, okay, let's implement something so that we can help avoid this. And we know the heaters aren't used during the summertime out here because it gets up to like 120 some degrees and the pools are like in the 90s. Some are even up to 100 degrees. We know when people come down and it's right before Thanksgiving. So right before Thanksgiving, what we need to do is we sent out an email and we told everybody this is a new service that we provide and it's mandatory. And it's what we need to do is in order to maintain the equipment so we can avoid customer disappoints when you guys come down. Also to help extend the life of the heater, because it does. Every year we're going to be doing an annual maintenance on your heater, which is $99. And that includes us going out there and opening up the case, vacuuming it out, cleaning it up, checking out the wiring, putting it in spa mode, turning it on, making sure the spa turns up to temp, making sure that the maximum temp set up on the heater, making sure everything works properly. And then we found it to be extremely successful, and just about everybody at first wanted to do it. Some customers never use their heaters. And then we overcame those objections by saying, well, you might not use your heater, but the time you might need to use it, or if it doesn't work, or if it breaks down, or if you have to replace it sooner than you should have, it's just preventative maintenance. It's kind of like getting oil changes done in your car, or get new tires and stuff like that. You need, or going to the doctor once a year for a checkup. And we found it very successful. It's a benefit for the customer. It's a benefit for us. And in more than one way, not only is it a revenue stream or some income for us, but it's also the most important thing is it helps eliminate those customer disappoints. And when we do those heater checks and we know there's an issue, then we can start planning ahead and say, okay, we have this, we need to fix this, need to fix, and we let the customers know, and then they can make a choice of whether or not we need to fix it or not. So hopefully that answered the question.
Absolutely. And not only that is, it's obviously probably, the most expensive equipment on your pad.
Oh, for sure. It is. Yeah.
So you really want to take care of that. All right. So here's one more for you guys. Good morning. I was wondering if you could help me out with a question. So I'm curious as to how other pool companies across the country are solving the problem of increased chlorine tab costs. How are they quoting new customers, and how are they going about changing existing rates and communicating that successfully with their customers?
Is that for me, Q, John?
Either one of you.
I'll say this. So this is my approach, and I think we all need to be ahead of the game. And we started this years ago and I've said it 100 times on podcasts and lives and stuff like that the majority of our pools are on salt. So this chlorine crisis to me is not an issue as far as when it comes down to cost for me. But I don't know, I'd say about 75% of all our pools are salt pools. So as far as, and then the pools that aren't salt, I'm constantly pushing to get them and moving them to salt. Because one, it helps me because we do the 1 time a week service and it's a way for us to maintain chlorine levels in the pool. 2, it helps the customer, obviously, because softer water, you know what I mean? They have that soft pool, or, they have their salt cell and stuff like that. But as a business standpoint, as far as us using like chlorine usage or having to use tabs or having to use Cal Hypo or having to use liquid chlorine, it really doesn't affect us much, because the only time we really need to use it is 1, when there's an issue with the salt system, or 2, if there's like a little heavy bather load or it's cold in the wintertime and the salt cell's not working. So we've overcome it by seeing this and saying, hey, look, how do I eliminate a big portion of my chemical costs per pool? The biggest portion of a chemical cost for a pool is usually chlorine that you add into it. And if you eliminate it by adding a salt cell, it's a win-win situation for you. It kind of future-proofs you from any kind of price increases and issues you might have in the future going forward. Plus, it's a moneymaker for you.
What about you, Zach?
Well, we increased our maintenance from, it was originally $219.99 when we did the Total Care weekly maintenance, and we just increased all new incoming customers to $225 even. And that's something my web guy has always been like, drop the 99, just make it a number. So finally I just said, all right, 225, let's make it simple. And we'll soon be increasing all of our existing maintenance customers who are on tabs to that 225 rate. We are also making a big push to change people to salt systems for all of the reasons John just mentioned. And that's why we have that exclusive promotion for new customers to convert to salt. In that promotion, we make a very small amount on it. We cover our costs. We make a little bit of money on it. But the end result is going to be, like John said, we're going to save a lot on chemical costs. We're going to have more consistent chlorine production in our pool. And then a big thing for me is that, the more pools we put on route, the more hazardous chemicals I'm throwing in the warehouse. And I'm not a fan of hazardous chemicals. So we can, if we had 100% salt pools, I could eliminate an entire hazardous chemical from storage and replace it with just bags of salt, which is huge for me. And just the handling of the guys having to be exposed to that and handle that, it's a win all the way around. And John, I actually have a question for you. Tabs is the bottom of the list, obviously. Is salt number 1 for you, or is liquid number 1 for you in what you like?
I mean, in a perfect world, liquid is the best way to take care of a pool if you were able to be there 5 days a week, right? Or if you had like a Rollicam or some kind of chemical feeder in the pool.
Liquidator.
Yeah, liquidator. There you go, a liquidator. You're right.
Awesome liquidator.
But to be honest, I really think salt is a win-win. And I don't really, I get that there's some downfalls with it, especially with like the high pH and then them not working or them being expensive sometimes, or people saying that they get fouled up or whatever. But we don't really have those issues, and we combat it with stuff like with chemistry, as far as like sequestering agents and with having like borates in the pool. Plus, it's a huge selling point when we talk to the customers and we explain to them when we're selling salt systems. And I don't mean to go into like a sales pitch on it, but if it helps anybody out, not only is it a benefit for us as a company, right, that we don't have to incur the cost of that extra chlorine, right, or adding it, but it's super important for a customer because not number one, but one of the issues we get, or one of the questions we get is, I don't like all the chemicals, or what are you adding in the pool, and that kind of stuff. And I kind of explain to the customer, and I go, look, when your pool guy comes to a pool, or any pool service company comes to your pool and they're adding chlorine to it, they have to spike it, right? And I kind of talk to them, I say, it's like a heart rhythm, right? Like a sinus rhythm. So when they come, they have to add enough chlorine into that pool to spike it. And then it slowly tapers off and comes down until their next visit, and then they spike it again. In the meantime, they're adding a lot more chlorine than they have to, than your pool really, really needs. But they need to add it in order for that chlorine to last and be there, so that by the time they get there next week or next visit, you'll still have a residual in there, which is the minimum amount, which is usually between like 1 and 3 parts per million, of chlorine. Tech can't go in there and put 3 parts per million of chlorine in there and say, hey, I'll be back next week. Because in a couple of days it's gone. So they need to add a little bit more for that to happen. But with the salt system, we're able to regulate that, and we're able to give you the bare minimum amount of chlorine, and it's at a constant production. So you don't have to worry about that spike in chlorine. You don't have to worry about, hey, when your pool service company's here, please don't swim in the pool for 3 hours because we had to add a gallon or a gallon and a half or 2 gallons of chlorine or whatever we had to put in your pool. It's like your pool, as far as chlorine, if we have to add other chemicals, we'll put in the notes and say, hey, please don't swim. But you don't have that issue, and you have a constant level of chlorine, and you have a John there or a Janie there that it's, constantly feeding your pool with a little bit of chlorine so that your pool's safe and healthy. And then on top of it, you get the benefits of it being a salt pool, being softer on your skin and stuff like that. And that's how we land it. People understand it. That's what you got to do. You have to, when it comes to selling, this is it. You have to tie it into their lifestyle. You need to ask these questions, and you need to understand these things. When you hear these, you got to go, okay, great. And then now you give them something that you can sell them that'll fulfill a need for them. And sometimes they don't understand, they don't even know what that need is. But when you have that conversation with them and you talk and you build that rapport and you build that, you start asking questions, you figure these things out. And they don't know until they know, and they don't know what they don't know. And that's our job, to help them with that. And then I can go, okay, great. Well, I have a solution for that problem that you have of too much chlorine in the pool, or this or that. I have a solution. This is what we can do for you, and this is how we can offer it. That's how we do it.
And here's my thing, and I'm going to put a different, can't speak all of a sudden, a different spin into it. And that is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've noticed seeing a lot of pictures on social media, and whether it's a pool company or pool guys or whatever, and just going out and buying tons of buckets of tabs and buckets of dichlorine. You can see them in the pictures in the background and all that. And so we've been talking about it for a while with the whole cost of the tabs and the effects of the CYA. And guys, if you're in a market where customers aren't going to buy those salt systems, or, because I've been in some of those markets, you really need to look at all the other options. My concern is people aren't looking, Zach and John, at their numbers. They aren't really looking at the bottom line and figuring out that now one tab is going to cost you $1.25 to $1.50. You drop 2 tabs. Now that's $3. So that's $3 a week. And because you're not tracking that on a normal basis, you don't see the impact that you're having on your bottom line. And so for you guys out there, I suggest do look at other options. And if you know that liquid is going to be a better option for you, look at the other options out there, right? Whether it's, you can sell them a liquid or whatever other product, but then you're going to do the same thing that John's talking about with the salt system. You're going to be able to constantly add a little bit of chlorine to that pool every week. It's going to solve your CYA issue. And then more importantly, it's going to solve the issue of you having to take that hit because of the increased cost. To answer the question that we got sent in, those are all the things that you need to look at. And those are all the things that you can put into play in order to obviously communicate that and do that pitch towards your customer. But the thing is, guys, 2 things that concern me is, one, not a lot of pool guys are looking at their bottom line, Zach. They're not breaking down those numbers. They're not looking at every cost for every month and figuring out what that cost is going to be. And because there's that constant cash flow, it overshadows everything, and you don't get to see the full impact. So I hope that the guys that are out there are listening and are like this person that sent in the question and has it on the top of his mind, trying to find a solution to it. Guys, let's take a quick word from our sponsors. And when we come back, John, Zach, I'll get your final thoughts.
The sound of you continually pitching pool care poles into the trash. The sound of you using an Ultimate Pool Tools carbon fiber pool care pole for years to come. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at ultimatepooltools. 2021 is the year of the Pool Pro. Hasa is here to support pool pros with the purest and highest strength liquid sanitizer available. Hasa SaniChlor provides fast, safe chlorine performance without adding any cyanuric acid or calcium. Hasa gives you the best cost per use solution for shocking and daily sanitizing and is in stock. Look for the new Hasa Rewards app coming soon. Go to hasa.com for more news, educational videos, and product information and literature.
Guys, welcome back. We're talking to Zach and John. We're talking about selling techniques. And John, forever in my brain, is stuck the word every time I listen to that Hasa pitch with the cyanuric acid. I don't think that's ever going to go away out of my head. So let's see. Let's flip a coin here and let's go with Zach. Final thought.
Well, sales is something you really need to be comfortable with. And I want everyone to throw away that image of the 1980s car salesman, because that's not what we're talking about. And for the pool boys, the sales process is just building a relationship, being transparent, being honest, and setting those expectations. It really isn't this big, scary thing. And I covered a lot about the actual sales process with the customer, but I left out an extremely important part of our sales process, which is our website and our web presence. You know, having a professional and educational website can play a huge part in whether you close that deal or not. And we like to personally be transparent and open about our pricing on our site. And this means that if we get to the point where we're in the customer's backyard, they are already expecting that $225 a month price, and it helps vet the customers before you even talk to them. So I recommend putting some time into your web presence to help you with this process.
Total agreement. John.
I'll leave everybody with this as far as like for sales, and this is my opinion. And this might be a head scratcher for some, but hear me out. I think sales is tied for the most important when it comes down to being successful. Let's really think about it, right? And be honest with ourselves. Talent, skills, knowledge get you nowhere if you can't sell those abilities with your customer or market. In order to be able to utilize those skills, talents, you have to convince someone to trust you to do it. If you lack confidence, but have all the knowledge and the talent in the world, you can't convince your audience to pay you for those services. And how do you become successful? Now, on the flip side, if you're great at sales but don't deliver, your success is short-lived and you won't last. Your shitty work will catch up to you and you'll have a long, difficult road ahead of you. You know, it is so critical. It's the difference between being good and being great. You can have all, like I said, and I'll say it again, you can have all the talent in the world. You can have the greatest business plan in the world. You can have perfect agenda, everything ready to rock and roll. But if you can't convince somebody to believe in you or to believe in the product you're trying to sell them, and usually that product is you, then you really can't get to that next level, or you really can't become successful. So that's why we focus on this. That's why we talk about the different aspects in the pool industry, because, you know, chemistry is one thing, how to get a pole and clean something or vacuum or empty a pump lid. You never really hear us ever talking about that. And I think what we're trying to talk about here is the nuts and bolts, the real deal, the real stuff that's going to be able to make you successful in the business you're in. And it's going to make you enjoy what you're doing more. So please, if you guys are on live or whatever, if you are on live, repost this again, take it and listen to it. There's a lot of great information in here, and there's plenty more to come. So I just hope everybody enjoyed it. Please shoot out more questions because we love answering them.
I mean, this podcast is just full of great information. And one of the things that we
shit though, you know what I mean? This is what it really is.
Yeah.
This is business right here. This is a stuff that, I mean, you don't get anywhere. You don't learn this anywhere else. Please listen, guys, if you want to be successful. We're doing it to try to help out. And the stuff in here actually works. And I challenge you to go out there and try it. Keep practicing. You might fail at first. You might fail at the second time or the third time. But I promise you, once you get it, you will see the results.
Yes. And we have here on the comments, and Leslie's another great point, which is it takes years to learn. And so I learned it the same way. It took me years to learn, but I had to go through that process because I didn't have anybody telling me, hey, do this, work on your sales pitch. And I'm very passionate about the sales pitch because it just gives you so much advantage. It gives you the ability to make more money. John, you made me think about something. Zach, have you read the book Good to Great?
I'm an audiobook guy. So I've listened to half of the book of Good to Great, which was a great book. It's a very long book, if I remember correctly. So I didn't make it all the way through.
Yeah, it's definitely. John, have you read that one?
I think I have long time ago.
It's a great book, guys, and it really focuses on, you going from being good to, and this is like one of the things John's always talking about is not just being good, but being great and taking your business to the next level and doing all that. So it's a great book. Zach, I really recommend that you not just listen to it, but you actually read it.
I'll fall asleep though.
I could really see it. Well, and you go to bed early. So what do you expect? You're in bed. Leslie, what time do you put him to bed? Send me a message here because it sounds like. By the way, Leslie, I apologize, Leslie, for calling you late last night. I told Leanne I'm going to send Leslie either chocolates or flowers to kind of apologize for me waking them up last night. So,
what about me? Am I going to get chocolates or flowers?
Yeah. That's what I told Leanne. I'm like, I don't care about Zach. I'm worried about Leslie. I wouldn't be worried about John. I'd be worried about Mama. Right. So, anyways, look at that. She says he can fall asleep in the middle of a sentence. Oh, I love it. So anyways, guys, Zach, John, as usual, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for taking the time to do these podcasts, to put the work into it, to share your knowledge. I think these are great podcasts for everybody out there. Guys, we hope that you have a great week. John, we hope that the wins are over. We'll do the win dance to kind of get them to go away. And we'll talk to everybody next week. Bye, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Pool Nation podcast, a member of the Pool Nation family. You can listen to us live every Friday here at 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, and 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. You can find us at Pool Nation or PoolNationPodcast.com, on Facebook, or on Instagram at Pool.Nation. And to find more info about Pool Invoice, the billing software built specifically for the pool industry, go to PoolInvoice.com. Before you go, this is what the pool industry has been waiting for. PoolManUniversity.com. It's the first platform dedicated to learning the swimming pool service and repair industry. A pool service community where you can connect and find videos on business, service, water chemistry, and repairs. See you there at PoolManUniversity.com.
Pool Nation, all rights reserved. No part of this podcast may be reproduced in a verbal or nonverbal way. May not be distributed. It may not be distributed in any social media platforms or transmitted in any other forms or any other means, including recording or other electronic or mechanical methods without the prior written permission of Pool Nation.